Joining me is Behnam Ben Taleblu. He's a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. He's talking to us from Washington. So Mr. Trump had a tweet on Friday criticizing the media for their inaccurate coverage of this story, but that's not my point. He ended this tweet with this: "At least Iran doesn't know what to think," which at this point may very well be a good thing. So my question, is Iran confused about the U.S. strategy right now that we know of? And if so, could that really be a good thing, at least from the U.S. point of view?
Well, great to be with you. I think the Islamic Republic of Iran has had a hard time reading the Trump administration, which is why early in 2017 you saw Iran pull back from some of its most provocative activities, be it medium-range ballistic missile tests or, in fact, harassment of naval vessels in the Persian Gulf. However, once President Trump restored the sanctions on Iran on May 8th, 2018, during that first year of max pressure, quote-unquote, Iran's policy was patience in the face of pressure. Under year 2 of max pressure, Iran is now engaging in graduated escalation, trying to find out that is this just tough rhetoric from Washington, or is there something behind this rhetoric? Will this be enough to just deter Iran, or is the administration looking to do something else?
And max pressure is continuing. As we know, the U.S. is sending an aircraft carrier and Patriot missiles to the region. What does Iran think when it sees this extra American firepower headed its way?
Well, hopefully Iran thinks the truth, which is that most of this is a course correction. It'd be good to note that for most of 2018, during the most sensitive times of the U.S.-Iran standoff, be it May 8th when the U.S. left the nuclear deal, or November when the U.S. restored oil sanctions, Washington did not have a single aircraft carrier in the Persian Gulf. This is actually in contravention of the past decade or so of U.S. policy in the region. Moreover, even though Iran has returned to using ballistic missiles from its own territory and firing them into the backyard of its Arab neighbors, Washington last fall had stripped the region of 4 Patriot missile defense batteries. So in my view, sending the USS Abraham Lincoln Strike Group as well as adding 1 Patriot missile defense battery to the region is a course correction. And hopefully Iran understands that the administration means business and that it can infer from this hardening of the U.S. posture in the region that it cannot afford to win any escalation spiral and come back to the table in good faith.
But I just want to emphasize this observation of yours because it's really interesting, and I think it gets lost in some of the coverage. You say course correction. In other words,
right.
The Trump administration is showing more military muscle, but starting from an unusually low level by U.S. standards. That's what you're saying.
That's right, because if you broaden the aperture out a little bit, it is unknown exactly where some of these Patriot missile defense batteries had gone. Many allege that it was to a theater of conflict in Northeast Asia, basically to deter North Korea at more sensitive times of the standoff last year, as well as getting to the fact that American naval vessels aren't as widespread as many people think they are. And it gets to the point about how many ships does the American government and American public want in its Navy. And where American vessels are present in some places of the world means that they're going to have to be absent from other places.
And do you think this renewed pressure then can pressure Iran into renewed negotiations?
Well, this is where history is imperative, because there are only a handful of times in the 4-decade history of the Islamic Republic of Iran where Iran's leaders have done an about-face. The Iran-Iraq War is one of them. In the first 7.5 years of the 8-year conflict, Khomeini, the founding father of the Islamic Revolution, said war, war, war until victory. His goal, like President Bush, was to topple the Ba'athist regime of Saddam Hussein in Baghdad. He failed. But only after immense cost and immense pressure did he do a 180 and accept a UN ceasefire resolution, which he likened to drinking from a poisoned chalice. The goal now is to get Khamenei, Khomeini's successor, to feel the pain of those sanctions and to come to the negotiating table, even though he is today saying that he will not come and talk with America. So it needs to be maximum pressure for Iran to realize that there is no way out but through other than a capitulation.
Where do you stand on the John Bolton part of this story, the president's national security advisor who infamously advocated regime change in Iran? Listen first to what a U.S. senator had to say about him on CNN earlier today.
John Bolton would very much like to go to war. He wrote and has said multiple times, look, Iran will never stop their nuclear program. The only way to respond is to destroy it. He sees the world and he says, I don't want negotiations, I want bombs.
So allegedly, John Bolton, the warmonger, where do you stand on this?
Well, when you look at some of the history of Mr. Bolton before coming into office, he is consistent. He doesn't like limited arms control agreements. He doesn't believe international institutions are going to be what's defending American security or America's military posture abroad. But when you look at the Trump administration's Iran policy, under multiple national security advisors, the primary aim is to get Iran to ink a broader agreement when the U.S. actually ended up leaving the JCPOA nuclear deal. So here, personnel matters, but U.S. policy matters even more. And no matter who has been implementing it, the policy has been max pressure, get sanctions on the country, and bring Tehran back to the negotiating table.
Yeah, max pressure, both military and economic, and that's what we're seeing now. Behnam Ben Taleblu, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.